It was another busy week in Springfield, so let's get right into our Capitol recap. Monday was the official start of the 2022 campaign season for anyone who is interested in submitting their petitions to be on the ballot. Of course, the most important race this year is the governor's race in Illinois. Capitol Bureau reporter Lizzie Stiles has the latest from the State Board of Elections.
Well over 8,000.
Almost 20,000.
I got like over 14,000.
Thousands of petitions.
Candidates from across the state made the pilgrimage to Springfield to show off pages of signatures to get on the ballot. Among them were some of the top names in this year's gubernatorial race. It's a kickoff to what is expected to be a competitive Republican primary as candidates line up to take their shot at Governor Pritzker in November. One of the best funded, Richard Irvin, quickly filed his petitions, promising to say more at a rally later tonight. Another, downstate Senator Darren Bailey, has criticized Irvin for not being a true Republican in the past.
I am the only candidate standing up for the people, pushing a message of change, and that's what's coming.
His competitor, Paul Schimpf, argues strong emotions aren't the answer.
Hope is not a plan, and anger cannot be a solution. We need leaders that can unify our state.
One of the lesser-known Republican candidates, Gary Rabine, is hopeful he'll make up some ground before the primary. He's relying on his background as a businessman and not a politician to make him stand out.
I'm a job creator, a small business person that's seen the pressure on business and jobs in Illinois.
Democrats are also gearing up. Without major competition, Pritzker took aim at potential Republican challengers. Republicans are tired of Pritzker's policies, and Pritzker says he's tired of them.
Well, we're sick and tired of Republicans trying to take away the benefits that working families get from having Democratic leadership.
There's still 113 days before the primary, leaving plenty of time for things to change.
Candidates have until the end of business on Monday to file their petitions. Meanwhile, the Republican slate of candidates funded by the richest man in the state of Illinois started their campaign season Monday night. Aurora Mayor Richard Irvin and State Representative Avery Bourne are touring the state in hopes of winning GOP support. Members of billionaire Ken Griffin's slate of candidates say Illinois needs strong conservative Republican leaders. Irvin says crime, taxes, and wasteful spending are out of control in Illinois.
I've succeeded in reducing taxes in the city of Aurora. I've succeeded in reducing crime. I've succeeded in attracting businesses and jobs. That's exactly what we need to do for the state of Illinois if we're going to take our state bet.
The slate includes downstate Republicans like Bourne and Secretary of State candidate John Milhiser, who formerly served as a U.S. attorney. Milhiser is now a high school teacher and says many of his students distrust government.
What once was maybe a healthy skepticism is now a complete distrust of government, of career politicians. They don't believe they're there working for them, and we need to change it.
They also spend time highlighting the recent indictment of former House Speaker Mike Madigan. Shannon Teresi says she will crush corruption as the state's next comptroller. However, that office doesn't handle ethics or corruption.
I challenge each and every one of you to open up the 2020 financial statements and look to see how much the debt has increased. Look to see how much the debt has increased under Susana Mendoza and J.B. Pritzker.
But Mendoza took office in 2016, taking on the state's $16 billion in debt. That backlog is now down to $3.8 billion, and the comptroller's office is paying bills within 15 days. Meanwhile, Attorney General candidate Steve Kim says crime is rampant in Illinois and causing people to flee.
I understand the importance of keeping people safe, because without public safety and without public security, you don't have an active society.
State Representative Tom Demmer is also part of that Republican slate of candidates. He hopes to take on Democratic Treasurer Michael Frerichs. Also this week, Lizzie Stiles looked into an investigation of what the state could do to help people with drug abuse issues before they end up in jail.
Drug offenses have often been met with charges and jail time, whether for drug users or dealers. Some Illinois groups are looking for a more compassionate approach, focusing more on treatment and less on jail time.
In almost every situation where a youth is committed to our care because of their relapse, it is absolutely the wrong decision.
Relapse, they say, is a natural part of the recovery process. They hope to decriminalize drug offenses to help keep addicts out of jail. However, some lawmakers believe that there should be an incentive for breaking the addiction, like programs that will clear your criminal record if you complete rehab treatment.
They should be charged, they should be arrested. However, there should be avenues to keep them on the straight and narrow to where if they complete these tasks, if they do what they're supposed to do, then any conviction would then be taken off of their records.
DJJ acknowledged that any change in approaching addiction would have some complications, but removing people from areas they're getting help could create a setback and delay their recovery. They say keeping someone local, especially kids, is important.
It creates a certain level of security and safety in the same way that any of us feel more safe when we know who's around us.
Their focus for now will be a more compassionate approach, treating addiction like a disease to be cured instead of a crime to be punished.
The bills reducing drug penalties may not pass this session, although the department is putting more emphasis on treatment for people in the state. Illinois hotels are still struggling to recover from revenue loss and staffing shortages over the past 2 years. Industry leaders hope state lawmakers can give them an extra financial boost this year. 2 proposals could help invest $250 million into a hotel jobs recovery plan. The funding would come from the Federal American Rescue Plan, and industry leaders say the $250 million could provide a one-time grant equal to $1,500 per room for every hotel in Illinois. 80% of the funding would have to be used for payroll costs like wages and benefits for the employees. The industry once generated $16 billion in wages and salaries for more than 290,000 jobs. Leaders say it is critical for many hotel employees, most coming from Black and brown communities.
With the Hotel Jobs Recovery Act, we'll be able to secure better pay for the loyal staffers that we do have, including housekeepers and cooks and kitchen staff who have been with us for more than 20 years.
Anwar Martin says general managers could also use that funding to hire more staff. He argues any help is great to protect the industry from any future COVID-19 variants. This plan has bipartisan support in both chambers, and even if the bills can't move before the end of the year, hotel leaders hope lawmakers can include that investment in the state budget. The state invested $170 million towards services for thousands of people with developmental disabilities last year. But this year, Governor Pritzker only put $94.8 million towards those same services. Providers say that won't be enough, and they're asking for $246 million. Governor Pritzker's proposed budget calls for specific funding for rate increases for direct support professionals, but his plan would only cover a $1 wage increase. Many of the people on the front lines in this industry say they barely get by.
The state is in the financial position that it's in, where it's as healthy as we are. Why aren't we investing those dollars back into those commitments that we've made to families, to our service array?
Josh Evans says every agency in his network is dealing with a worker shortage. Many leave the industry for less demanding jobs and better compensation. Providers say direct support professionals should receive 150% of the state's minimum wage. It could impact over 30,000 direct support professionals and any future workers in the field.
If we do not recruit and hire DSPs, train them, we will no longer have the supports needed to continue to support intellectual and developmental disabilities in the state of Illinois.
Still, another area of concern is the fact 14,000 people are still on the waiting list to receive these services. Pritzker's budget proposal could help put nearly 700 people into less restrictive or community home settings. However, Lacey Eaton with Transition to Western Illinois says that is not nearly enough.
It did feel like our direct support professionals were left out, and they're so vital to our community in helping our individuals with developmental disabilities maintain living skills.
Cindy Drieselman says lawmakers need to put themselves into someone else's shoes to understand why these services are critical for her sister and thousands of other Illinoisans.
We owe them to have a respectful life and be taken care of, just in humanity aspects. Is just not to look at their budget lines or whatever. This is beyond that. This is people's lives.
This push for additional funding is definitely coming during crunch time for lawmakers. They only have a few more weeks before they adjourn on April 8th. Now let's head over to the courtroom. Former Illinois House Speaker Michael Madigan and his close colleague Mike McLean pled not guilty to corruption charges brought against them last week. Madigan was indicted on 22 counts of public corruption, and McLean faces fewer charges. But prosecutors also said the most serious charges could carry sentences of up to 20 years in prison. They both have a status hearing scheduled for April 1st. Let's move on to renewed calls for accountability after 36 veterans died from a COVID-19 outbreak in the LaSalle Veterans Home in 2020. The Pritzker administration forced the resignation of the state's former VA director, and an audit into alleged mismanagement at the home is ongoing. But a Republican senator wants to see more done. Senator Sue Rezin filed 3 proposals last year to hold the state accountable for those 36 deaths and help prepare for future outbreaks. The Illinois Department of Public Health waited 11 days after the outbreak was first reported before they showed up on site to assess the situation. One of Rezin's bills would require the Department of Veterans Affairs and IDPH to visit an outbreak site within 48 hours. Another plan could require state-run facilities to have outbreak preparedness drills.
If the governor truly wants to say that he has changed what has happened in the past and that he's corrected the problems, that he should publicly support my bills.
Her final proposal will give the Inspector General subpoena powers to improve the outcomes of state investigations. This comes after former IDVA Director Linda Ciampa-Lavia refused to cooperate in the LaSalle investigation. Rezin said each of these proposals should have bipartisan support, although there are no Democratic co-sponsors and none of her bills have had a hearing. Meanwhile, some of her Republican colleagues think they have a solution to address the high gas prices in Illinois. They want to cap the state's sales tax on motor fuel at 18 cents per gallon. The caucus says Illinoisans paid that amount in sales tax last fall before the prices for gas skyrocketed. Drivers now pay roughly 25 cents per gallon, but they're afraid it could go up to 34 cents. Senator Dave Severson says his plan could save drivers nearly $1 billion over the next fiscal year. Republicans hope people will support this idea over Governor Pritzker's proposed one-year freeze of the gas tax at 39 cents per gallon.
The money that he was talking about is coming directly out of roads, which again potentially could cost jobs and delay crucial road work that needs to be done. Ours is money that was never obligated.
Illinois is one of 7 states that charges a sales tax on top of the gas tax. That money goes directly back into state coffers, but Republicans say it should stay in your pocket. Their proposal was just filed on Thursday, but the Senate isn't expected back until March 22nd. That's all for this week's Capitol Recap. Thanks for joining us. I'm Mike Militich.